Rapid urbanization, globalization, and supply chain efficiency have created the concept of shopping malls where people can buy both consumer durables and consumer non-durables items in one place. As shopping at a shopping mall has transformed shopping experiences from drudgery to fun, all major urban landscapes are dotted with shopping malls. From the consumer's perspective, shopping malls are beneficial, as they provide a wider variety of high-valued products at cheaper rates than from nearby shops. Farmers get remunerative prices for their produce, as they can directly sell their produce to malls without any intermediaries. Producers get bulk orders of their products, circumventing trade channels. As the reduction in intermediaries will improve the supply chain efficiency, the role of middlemen and small shops will diminish. From consumers' and producers' perspectives, shopping mall phenomenon is a win-win situation. But from small shop owners' perspectives, it is a direct threat to their livelihood. Small shop owners can survive in the market, but they need to reinvent their strategies to serve their local clientele with better services. Shopping malls boost a local economy as supply chain efficiency brings down inflation, increases consumption, and creates new jobs.
The raging debate whether employees should be involved in the decision-making process or not is not new. In today's age of startup, productive employees are assets for any company. Often, the management of startups and technology companies involves their employees in the decision-making process. The ultimate aim of any company is to satisfy his or her customers profitably through their highly motivated and productive employees. A company should involve their employees in the decision-making process. From management's perspective, involvement of employees in decision-making process enables management to get right feedback from the ground level and tune the policy accordingly. Involving employees into decision-making process builds trust among management and employees, produces synergy in operation, and reduces friction among management and employees. The company should restrict this exercise at an operational level, where employees are direct stakeholders. The company should never involve employees into certain policy level, strategy level, financial or confidential matter, where employees do not have any expertise or any stake. Involvement of employees in decision-making process enables and empowers employees to perform better, to improve productivity, to serve customer excellently, and to improve the bottom line of the company. Involvement of employees in decision-making process gives the company a leading edge in the market and creates a win-win situation for both employers and employees.
The fortune of becoming a fortune teller is a dream for everyone. You get the privilege of looking into the future of others. In some places, they are called psychics. People come to a fortune teller to resolve their problems. The forecast made by a fortune teller may not be exactly true. Fortune tellers are not respected in some places, but in some places, they are respected a lot. Many get married only after asking the fortune teller. Fortune teller take this work as divine work. Even many entrepreneurs start the business after consulting a fortune teller. Fortune tellers use different methods to tell fortune. Some use numerology, some use astrology, some use cards, and some use crystals to gaze into the future of others.
A small boy entered a coffee shop and sat at a table. A waiter came forward to put a glass of water and asked the boy to place an order. He inquired about the cost of a sundae. The waiter said 50 rupees. He checked his pockets and asked the waiter again, "How much does vanilla cost?" The waiter was impatient because there was a huge rush today and people were waiting for the table. The waiter said 35 rupees. The boy asked the waiter to get a vanilla. After the waiter brought the order, Boy ate the ice cream, paid the bill, and left the place. When the waiter started cleaning the table, he was astonished at what he saw. The boy had left 15 rupees as a tip. The boy had left 15 rupees as a tip.
We all know how surprise makes us feel dizzy and causes our hands to go cold. But why do we feel surprise? Well, there are actually two main kinds. First-hand surprise happens when there's a difference between a new piece of information and a previous knowledge. For example, someone knocks on my door and it's my best friend, who I believe's living in Berlin, and I'm surprised because I didn't expect to see him. The second kind of surprise goes deeper. It's caused when an event contrasts with my long-term knowledge and expectations. If, for example, a police officer enters my house to arrest me when I've done nothing wrong, I'm surprised, not just because I didn't expect this event. The event destroys some strong beliefs I had that the law is fair. So I feel surprised because of a failure in my knowledge.
Have you ever seen a situation where an animal is repeatedly put in a negative situation that it can't escape? Eventually, the animal will stop trying to avoid the source of the problem. Instead, it starts behaving as if it's completely helpless to change the situation. Well, this state of limited control is called learned helplessness. Now, the animal has opportunities to escape from this environment, but the learned helplessness prevents it taking any action. We've seen it in a number of different animal species, but we also see this behaviour in people. So, for example, a child who does poorly on maths tests will quickly begin to feel that nothing he does will have any effect on his performance. Then, later, when that same child is faced with any maths task, he's probably going to experience that same feeling of helplessness on another occasion. What this means is that small problems can often become much worse because of this.
I should say one more thing about theory. It's great to discover theory, but you have to lose a lot, and you may have noticed, or maybe you didn't, how much you lose. Partly, you don't notice it much because here at the university everybody's dedicated to theory, and what's left out is, perception cause you use your mind, not your eyes. Skill, you're not supposed to have any particular sort of bodily kind of skills. There's a kind of mental thing, but let's not call that skill. I'm just calling skill the way you cope with everyday stuff that you use and so forth. Intuition, it's not fair to have intuition. I mean, you can have intuition, but it's not theory. It's not something that everybody has to believe until you can put it into language and argue for it. Gets rid of emotions, the body, tradition.
Coral reefs are one of the most fragile, biologically complex, and diverse marine ecosystems on Earth. This ecosystem is one of the fascinating paradoxes of the biosphere. How do clear, and thus nutrient-poor, waters support such prolific and productive communities? Part of the answer lies within the tissues of the corals themselves. Symbiotic cells of algae known as zooxanthellae carry out photosynthesis using the metabolic wastes of the coral, thereby producing food for themselves, for their corals, hosts, and even for other members of the reef community. This symbiotic process allows organisms in the reef community to use sparse nutrient resources efficiently. Unfortunately for coral reefs, however, a variety of human activities are causing worldwide degradation of shallow marine habitats by adding nutrients to the water. Agriculture, slash and burn, land clearing, sewage disposal and manufacturing that creates waste byproducts all increase nutrient loads in these waters. Typical symptoms of reef decline are destabilized herbivore populations and an increasing abundance of algae and filter-feeding animals. Declines in reef communities are consistent with observations that nutrient input is increasing in direct proportion to growing human populations, thereby threatening reef communities sensitive to subtle changes in nutrient input to their waters.
Geologists have long known that the Earth's mantle is heterogeneous, but its spatial arrangement remains unresolved. Is the mantle essentially layered or irregularly heterogeneous? The best evidence for the layered mantle thesis is the well-established fact that volcanic rocks found on oceanic islands, islands believed to result from mantle plumes arising from the lower mantle, are composed of material fundamentally different from that of the mid-ocean ridge system, whose source, most geologists contend, is the upper mantle. Some geologists, however, on the basis of observations concerning mantle xenoliths, argue that the mantle is not layered, but that heterogeneity is created by fluids rich in incompatible elements, elements tending toward liquid rather than solid state, percolating upward and transforming portions of the upper mantle irregularly, according to the vagaries of the fluid's pathways. We believe, perhaps unimaginatively, that this debate can be resolved through further study, and that the underexplored mid-ocean ridge system is the key.
One of the questions of interest in the study of the evolution of spiders is whether the weaving of orb webs evolved only once or several times. About half the 35,000 known kinds of spiders make webs, a third of the web weavers make orb webs. Since most orb weavers belong either to the Aranidae or the Ulliboridae families, the origin of the orb web can be determined only by ascertaining whether the families are related. Recent taxonomic analysis of individuals from both families indicates that the families evolved from different ancestors, thereby contradicting Weil's theory. This theory postulates that the families must be related, based on the assumption that complex behavior, such as web building, could evolve only once. According to Coleman, web structure is the only characteristic that suggests a relationship between families. The families differ in appearance, structure of body hair, and arrangement of eyes. Only ulliborids lack venom glands. Further identification and study of characteristic features will undoubtedly answer the question of the evolution of the orb web.
Although the development of new infrastructure is usually determined by governmental planning, sometimes this development can be planned more flexibly and realistically by private investors who anticipate profit from the collection of user fees. Such profits can contribute to the financing of more infrastructure if demand proves great enough, whereas the reluctance of developers to invest in such projects can signal that additional infrastructure is not needed. During the economic boom of the 1980s, for example, the state of Virginia authorized private developers to build a $300 million toll road. These developers obtained the needed right-of-way from property owners, but by 1993 they still had not raised the necessary financing. The unwillingness of investors to finance this project does not negate the viability of privately financed roads, rather, it illustrates a virtue of private financing. If a road appears unlikely to attract enough future traffic to pay for the road, then it should not be built.
The Earth's past climate, including temperature and elements in the atmosphere, has recently been studied by analyzing ice samples from the Greenland and Antarctica. The air bubbles in the ice have shown that, over the past 160,000 years, there has been a close correlation between temperature changes and level of natural greenhouse gases carbon dioxide and methane. One recent analysis from the Greenland showed that at the end of the last glacial period, when the great ice sheets began to retreat to their present position, temperatures in southern Greenland rose from 5 to 7 degrees in about 100 years. Air bubbles are not the only method of determining characteristics of the Earth's ancient climate history. Analysis of dust layers from ancient volcanic activity is another such method, as is the study of ice cores, which interpret past solar activity that may have affected our climate.
I have chronic pain and at times this is severe, but this is managed with opiates. I know the general public has a very perverted view of opiates because they think street addiction, heroin, drug smugglers. However, if prescribed correctly by doctors in the right dose for your height and weight and you manage it well yourself, I haven't increased my dose of 80 milligrams of morphine in the last 18 years. So that's a fairly good illustration. That no, you don't double it every 10 minutes the way the general public think. And also it's very well looked after by the government. I have to present myself to my GPs who all get to know me very well every 30 days, and they have to phone to Canberra to have authorization, and I get my monthly dose of opiates to keep me going till the next lot.
French and American cookbooks obviously share the same subject, they both deal with the preparation of food. But that's where the similarity ends. American recipes are very exact, while French recipes are open to personal variation. In American cookbooks, the teaspoon of sugar, for instance, is described as rounded or flat. French cookbooks are inclined to be less precise. The French cookbook writer thinks nothing of listing a sprinkling of pepper or a pinch of salt. French cookbooks are also likely to tell the reader to season according to taste. American cookbooks, in contrast, don't seem to have as much faith in their readers' ability to get the recipe right from taste. They tell readers exactly how much seasoning to use. The study of history provides many benefits. First, we learn from the past. We may repeat mistakes, but, at least, we have the opportunity to avoid them. Second, history teaches us what questions to ask about the present. Contrary to some people's view, the study of history is not the memorization of names, dates, and places. It is the thoughtful examination of the forces that have shaped the courses of human life. We can examine events from the past and then draw inferences about current events. History teaches us about likely outcomes. Another benefit of the study of history is the broad range of human experience which is covered. War and peace are certainly covered, as are national and international affairs. However, matters of culture, art, literature, and music are also included in historical study. Human nature is an important part of history. Emotions like passion, greed, and insecurity have influenced the shaping of world affairs. Anyone who thinks that the study of history is boring has not really studied history.
For the ancient Romans, taking a bath was a very special occasion. Because they considered bathing a social opportunity, they constructed huge public baths that put our modern-day indoor pools and spas to shame. Not only were the baths themselves lavishly decorated, they were also surrounded by shops, libraries, and lounges so that a person could shop, read or chat after bathing. The famed baths of Caracalla, for example, offered Roman citizens massages and saunas in addition to a gymnasium and gardens for after-bath walks in lovely surroundings. Art lovers that they were, the Romans also frequently built art galleries into their bathing facilities. There were also kitchens, where food was prepared to serve hungry bathers. Although initially men and women bathed separately, mixed baths became the fashion until 500 AD, when the coming of Christianity brought the public baths to an end. Almost anyone who has grown container plantings has experienced the frustration of planters that look great for the first couple of weeks, but then start to decline. Not to worry. With a little understanding of how plants grow in containers, what to use for soil, and how to feed and water properly, you'll have the tools to keep your container plants looking great throughout their growing lifetimes. Unlike plants growing in the ground, container plants don't have the luxury of endless soil in which to stretch out their roots. Containers only hold a small volume of soil in a defined space. And we often further reduce this available space by putting a number of plants in each container. Success with container plantings, whether you're planting in window boxes or in old work boots, begins from the ground up. Garden soils or purchased topsoils intended for garden beds aren't appropriate for containers, they are too heavy, and tend to drain slowly, so roots confined to small spaces run the risk of rotting and dying. Additionally, the gardener who fills large planters with soil from a garden bed will find the planters excessively heavy to move. As of the year 2011, heart disease was the #1 killer of Americans. It was projected that more than 40% of adults in the United States would be diagnosed with cardiovascular disease by the year 2030. This proportion translates to more than $1 trillion in medical costs. In addition, Medicare would be responsible for covering more than half of those expenses. Therefore, advocates such as AARP say one way that aging Americans can help to reduce our federal government's budget deficit is to exercise. Regular aerobic exercise strengthens the heart muscle, improves blood circulation, and helps us lose weight. These results can lower our nation's medical expenditures by reducing the incidence of cardiovascular disease.
In the coastal region of the state of North Carolina, the waves of the Atlantic Ocean lap the shoreline from the border with Virginia to those of South Carolina. With forts, museums, and lighthouses prominent to the area, there is much to see and do. Many people revisit the Outer Banks year after year, taking time to check out the activities at Jockey's Ridge, Kitty Hawk, and the drama, The Lost Colony. Youngsters of all ages enjoy the ferry rides that are provided from island to island. Some of the many specific areas to consider when visiting the coastal region of North Carolina are presented in this section.
With its radiant color and plant-like shape, the sea anemone looks more like a flower than an animal. More specifically, the sea anemone is formed quite like the flower for which it is named, with a body like a stem and tentacles like petals in brilliant shades of blue, green, pink, and red. Its diameter varies from about 6 mm in some species to more than 90 cm in the giant varieties of Australia. Like corals, hydras, and jellyfish, sea anemones are coelenterates. They can move slowly, but more often they attach the lower part of their cylindrical bodies to rocks, shells, or wharf pilings. The upper end of the sea anemone has a mouth surrounded by tentacles that the animal uses to capture its food. Stinging cells in the tentacles throw out tiny poison threads that paralyze other small sea animals. The tentacles then drag this prey into the sea anemone's mouth. The food is digested in the large inner body cavity. When disturbed, a sea anemone retracts its tentacles and shortens its body so that it resembles a lump on a rock. Anemones may reproduce by forming eggs, dividing in half, or developing buds that grow and break off as independent animals.
Although great natural barriers hindered east-west development in Canada, this circumstance was mitigated by the mighty river and lake systems that provided avenues for the fur trader, missionary, soldier, and settler. Canada's rivers and lakes allowed and, indeed, invited venturesome pioneers to explore the interior of the continent and, in spite of natural barriers, to tap its great wealth. The rivers and lakes were essential to the Great Fur Empire. People in canoes brought furs from the farthest extremity of the Canadian Shield to Montreal for exportation to Europe. The first settlements spread along the rivers, since only the rivers provided transportation and communication. Militarily, rivers and lakes were of prime importance, Whoever controlled the St. Lawrence and its entrance also controlled Canada.
Some actors and rock stars are paid almost 100 times as much per year as school teachers. Not to downgrade the role of entertainment in our lives, but these people are not the valuable social resource that educators are. As another example, professional athletes earn vastly more than the nation's firefighters. Again, there is little doubt that the lower paid group contributes a more vital function to communities. Finally, dress designers, who can make up to $50,000 for a gown, far out-earn police officers, whose very presence makes our cities and towns livable. Jazz is a peculiarly American contribution to Western culture. It was born out of the unique experience of American blacks. Although its history is not entirely clear, jazz obviously has roots in the rhythm patterns and melodic lines of Africa, the tradition of Christian spirituals as sung by slave communities, the music of the blues as developed in the Deep South, and ragtime.
A new atomic clock being developed for navigation satellites will perform better than previous devices. The clock, which incorporates a hydrogen maser, will use a new microwave cavity design to provide a compact and lightweight package, and new electronic techniques to maintain long-term stability. The clock can provide precise navigation information because it is stable to 1 second in 3 million years. The differences in the time when signals from 4 satellites arrive at one location can be used to calculate that position to within a few yards.
So it seems that, well, despite the fact that more couples are childless and more people are working in the cities, the pull to the suburbs has continued. Over 50% of Americans, that's about 158 million, live in the suburbs now. While in 1990, that figure was around 48%. That's actually a difference of 40 million. Rural areas, on the other hand, have not seen the same pattern at all. Populations have declined over the past 20 years, and now only 16% of our nation lives there.
Actually, the word malaria means bad air in Italian, and centuries ago, that's what people thought caused this very infectious disease.
And who can blame them, really? Who can blame them for making that false connection? Who'd have thought that a tiny insect like a mosquito could cause so much sickness?
Yes. More surprising, perhaps, is the fact that it's taken scientists so much time since then to come up with a cure.
Aha. Well, that's what we're going to talk about now, because it does seem that this is now becoming a real possibility.
The Beehive is the common name for the executive wing of the New Zealand Parliament buildings, so called because its shape is very much like a traditional woven beehive. It's 10 stories high, with the levels becoming incrementally smaller the higher up they are. Scottish architect Sir Basil Spence did the original conceptual design in 1964, but the detailed design of the building was by the Ministry of Works, and they carried it through to fruition. It was opened by the Queen in 1977. When it was built, it was supposed to embody the spirit of New Zealand as a nation, but it's never really had that recognition in the way that buildings like, say, the Sydney Opera House have had. In a way, I suppose the Beehive was, for a long time, seen as an unfortunate hangover from the 1960s, but time has passed, to the point where people's feelings about it have gone through a kind of ironic celebration to real appreciation now.